Hi, in today's video we're going to explore Hit and Mix's new creative platform DeepCreate, along with their innovative Deep Remix stem separation tool that we looked at in our previous stem separation shootout video, and they've just launched DeepCreate. Deep Audio is their full surgical audio editing solution, providing intricate control over all sorts of spectral analysis and customization, while Deep Remix is essentially the tool you might want to use if you're just going to look at separating stems for remix purposes. But today, we're going to look at DeepCreate, which is their creative platform that allows us to not only separate and manipulate stems using their unique RipX format, but we can actually create projects wholesale within it, not unlike something between a DAW and an audio editor. For more great music production content from Attack Magazine, don't forget to hit like and subscribe down below. So as we explored in our stem shootout, to bring audio into Deep Remix or DeepCreate, you are going to have to import it. And this takes a moment for the RipX system to separate the audio and convert it to their unique RipX format called Rip Audio, which allows MIDI and audio to be treated the same. To do so, you can simply open the folder here and choose an audio file in MP3 or other format from anywhere on your hard drive. With DeepCreate, we also have a record button, so you can record audio or MIDI directly into DeepCreate and bypass the need to begin with any sort of audio that already exists. In addition, DeepCreate has added the ability to record MPE and audio from any input. Hit and Mix has also revamped all of the effects that are included, which now feature extensive automation capabilities that we'll explore shortly. So before we dive all the way in, a brief tour of the interface. This central area where we are invited to record or import new rips is where much of the editing magic will occur, as you'll soon see. On the left, we have what I would sort of call the input areas. So here we have all the rips or collections of musical ideas we might be working on at any given time. The layers of our selected rip, and the layers are essentially the equivalent of tracks within the DeepCreate paradigm. We've got the MIDI and audio inputs from which we can record into any given layer, audio or MIDI, and a helpful interactive help hover feature, so I can hover over any element of DeepCreate and it helpfully tells me exactly what that element can do for me. Above at the top, of course, we have our transport and loop area and our global BPM and time signature for the currently selected rip. Along the right, we have sort of the processing features. So up top, we have all the pitch effects, including any combo effect presets I might have created, our time effects here, our level, sort of similar to EQ and panning and processing for dynamics. Those effects are here. The sounds that we can drag in wholesale anew or layer with existing sounds are found here. And we also have loops and all kinds of effect presets that can be added down here. And these are all customizable. I can drag and drop them in different orders or even to the other side. And I can actually even take room away from the central editing area. So it's a completely modular interface format. So let's dive in. I'm just going to open this Deft Lines rip, which is a project where we can click and drag across to zoom in. And what we see here is basically a piano roll with a time interval grid, and we can zoom in and out in either dimension by clicking and dragging. And rather than a DAW with tracks in a timeline, DeepCreate offers what it calls layers. And whichever layer is selected here is the one that is currently edited or recorded into and also highlighted when we press play. And it's got a corresponding color. Now I'm going to select the bass so you can see the bass blobs sort of highlighted. And these are all converted to the RipX format, which combines audio and MIDI in a way, or at least that's a good way to understand or think about it. So what we see are sort of audio blobs that are placed on a piano roll timeline grid. By default, the scale will be chromatic, but I'm going to click here to detect the scale, and now everything is conformed to the D-harmonic minor scale it detected. So as I begin editing and moving components around, it will remain within that scale and key. And we'll explore that more later. But back to the layers. Each layer has a volume slider, and we can double click to return it to the default. And we can mute or solo each layer independently. And you can select multiple layers by holding down the Command or Control modifier, as you should be able to see clearly with the modifier key highlighted at the bottom of the video screen. And I can solo them as well. So now I'm just soloing the vocals, which is incredible. And each layer has a little drop down. So while DeepCreate does not afford any sort of conventional mix plugins, each layer does get its own stereo panning, plus a low, mid, and high EQ. But of course, where it gets interesting is the ability to edit. Now I'm just going to select a span of the arrangement in the loop scrub area and enable looping here. Let's go ahead and just solo the voice, and I can select each sort of vocal blob independently. Now I can also select the draw sound tool, and this is going to take the selection I made from the sound panel, which happens to be Mellotron Vox sample, and allow me to draw it in to the RipX note grid wherever I see fit. So this is where DeepCreate really begins to shine as a unique creative tool. So it's kind of resampling itself here. Now on the right sidebar, we have our pitch, time, and level effects. We also have sounds that we can use to sort of replace or remix with the current sounds. Now, if you want to apply effects and sounds across all audio within the selected layer, you might want to just select an entire span of time, but personally I find it more interesting to apply effects and sound layering automation on a per note basis, which is one of the uniquely flexible features DeepCreate allows. So I'm going to switch back to the move and select tool. So this is all selected, that's good. And I'm going to enable the pitch to scale. Now I can quantize the pitches as well. And by flattening the pitches, I can remove some of the pitch glide. I think instead I want to flatten the pitches a bit, and you'll notice the contours of changes in pitch, they flatten out. Now I'm going to select just this one blob and impose vibrato just on that. And when I click the vibrato effect, we get a contingent vibrato automation lane for that one blob. So I can impose the vibrato on that particular blob so it increases over the course of the time that particular note is held. And all this processing happens in real time. Now it's kind of obscured by this other note here, so I'm just going to move this. And I can add a harmony just to that one selection as well. And now I've just added a chord to that one vibrato slid up note. And I can say, hey, I don't want the full chord right away. Let's sort of fade the chord amount in. Okay, so we're already arriving at all kinds of sound design ideas that are difficult to even imagine creating in any other sort of platform that I'm aware of. Okay, so with the bass, which I will solo now, let's look at using some of the time effects. So I really like this glide here. I wonder what would happen if we imposed a chord on that. Well, it was a little bit too gained out. Perhaps a harmony would be more appropriate. Ooh, that's nice. And I can warp the time of it. So the time warp is factorization by a multiple. So by default, everything is warped times 1. But if I half it, then it's half as long, or I can double it. Okay, yeah, times 1.4. This is starting to get interesting. Select this blob here, and I'm going to hold Command click to select both of those, and then I will hit Command or Control on PC, G to group them. So these are now grouped as one blob. So those two are now grouped as one blob, and I can move them up or down. We can also select a sound and combine it with, like, let's combine it with this Les Paul. Okay, so that's giving me some really interesting effects, which I like quite a lot. And I think, you know, again, we can sort of morph it into that Les Paul at the end, so we get those kind of harmonics. And just to smooth it out, I'm just going to fade it off at the end. And we can add any sound in our hard drive to the sound library by adding a folder. It takes a moment to import to the RipX format, and so we can layer any sound with any sample we like. We can also select a VST3 plugin, but it's a little particular in that you have to select a preset of that plugin, and then it's going to export that preset to your library. So it's not like you get access to the VST3 plugin outside of this one moment of importing. Let's go ahead and check out Arturia's ES80 V4. I have to go ahead and select. Of course, we could drop the imported Coolology preset into a new layer and draw in some sounds, or even play them in via MIDI or MPE. I think it's time to look at some other creative purposes other than simply manipulating ripped audio created by others. So I'm going to go to my rips section here, and I've got a blank slate. So let's just go to our blank slate and look at this. We've got an empty grid that I can populate with whatever sounds I want. So I think just to give myself a bit of a slower tempo, I'm going to enter 111 and apply that to the rip. And I can see here, this is a beat grid. This is 4 beats, I believe. And I've imported some free Wave Alchemy samples from this Miami tape folder. And I'm just going to drag some one-shot samples to create a bit of a loop here. And so I'm going to take this somewhat more workable kick and just Command D to duplicate it. And I'm going to drag it back a little bit, and I'll do this 2 more times. So we've got, what do you know? a little kick loop. And now I think I'm going to add a vocal layer, and let's see if I can get the voice input recording. Okay, there we go, from the MacBook Pro microphone. I was unable to get my universal audio recording properly here. I think that might be an issue with the configuration on my end. But with voice selected, I'm just going to enable recording, and hey, yo, there's some blobs. My voice is a blob. Okay, and I've got more than enough garbage material here, but let's see what we can do to manipulate this, and then maybe I'll add some MIDI. So let's go back to our loop. Recording, and I'm just going to take that and syllable as part of our loop here. I'm just removing all these other blobs. And let's experiment. I think, first of all, I'm going to set a musical scale. Let's go to let's just do a hexatonic blues. So I guess that's a blues with 6 notes. And I'm going to make sure everything is, auto pitch 2 scale. Very cool. And I can duplicate that and I'm going to simply harmonize it. And I'll duplicate it one more time, and there we go. I'll just pause playback to get a handle on it because the transport keeps following it around. Okay, so now I think I'm going to select all 3 of those and switch to the split tool, and I think I'm going to just get rid of the first little bit of each of those, and I don't really want the consonant at the end, but I'm just going to see what I can do to impose a little pitch effects on there. So I want to try to add some vibrato just to that highest note. So the vibrato is being added over the course of that one note. And I want to take the middle note, so I'll just make sure that is the one selected. And I'm going to slide that pitch down. That's too much. I think let's go and add some reverb here. And it's got a funny multiple here, so I just want the reverb of this length to occur once. And it presents sort of as a bit of a delay. And might as well add a bit of a delay there. I think it's time to find some other percussion elements. So I'm going to be careful to add another layer here. Just call it percussion. And I've just got an 8th note grid, but if I zoom in a little more, I can get 16th notes. And I think I will use that handy duplicate command to create a bit more of an interesting pattern here. I think what might be a little more interesting is to take some of these hits and instead change their pitch. And so I can do that by simply moving them up or down. Okay, that's not so exciting, but let's go ahead and add a bass. And I'm going to tell it to receive input from my launch key, which is connected here, my MIDI controller. And it's got this sort of default electric bass sound, which we can manipulate later. But let's just go ahead and start recording in. I'll arm the layer for recording. Hey, yo. There's some blobs. My voice is a blob. And then I can go and manipulate these in a variety of ways. So maybe I'll just take these 3 notes that are selected here. So I need to do some quantization and perform some other editing. But once I've done that, I want to show how we can morph the sounds in some interesting ways. So recorded MIDI, but now it's showing the audio, and this is the unique benefit of the RipX format. So I have to go back to select my bass, and you know what? Let's increase the low end, and let's add another sound here. So if I click to the sound layers, we've got in the virtual instruments, you know, I've added my own, but we got all these other ones. So you can blend certain notes over time. So I want, I'm going to set this back to 0, and I want just this note to have some grand marimba, and just this note here to have that Mellotron Vox, if we can get it going. And let's go with the Tashagoto harp here. Now, the idea is you're going to have this virtual instrument library populated with your own custom sounds, but we can take notes and on a per note basis impose different sounds. And, you know, if I go back to the Mellotron Vox, I think maybe this would be good to show how I can sort of fade that Mellotron Vox in over the course of the note, just like all the other effects with the per note automation lane. It's worth mentioning the effects can be combined by dragging one on top of another to make your own presets, which adds a whole other layer of customizability and flexibility. I'm going to go back and add a little hi-hat here, right? I think we've earned it. I think we deserve it. And it's automatically created a new layer for us. So I'll just select the hit, and you know where we want that. So I'll duplicate one there, and then just this one. Can I get the reverse working properly? There we go. And maybe all of this is to demonstrate how rapidly you can create really unique ideas that are difficult to arrive at in a standard audio editor or in a DAW. Now, theoretically, you could continue this timeline out for as many bars, seconds, and minutes as you like, and compose an entire piece directly in DeepCreate. I believe that is part of the intention of this powerful and flexible system. However, it's perhaps better suited to either editing ripped ideas in a more flexible way, whether they be remix parts or your own loops, which you can of course drag in from anywhere on the hard drive, or to edit material quickly, or just to give yourself a different angle into the creative process by which you are likely to arrive at truly unique ideas. And once you've created those unique ideas, you can simply go to the export menu and export to any number of formats. You can export your rips to MIDI. You can export to MP3, to WAV. So now I will select the 24-bit WAV, and I'm going to first create a single file and export that. And now, so there's the entire batch of audio with all the weird vocal stuff I recorded by audio and all the MIDI I recorded. But perhaps more usefully, we can export just a particular layer or all of the layers as separate stems. And yeah, let's just select within that loop area the separate stems. Now separate layers, I should say, because I created this myself. I don't know if there are stems per se, but there are definitely many different layers. So let's export those. And here we go. With all the automation per note baked in. So for the drums and things of that nature, maybe it's not quite as exciting because, there are many ways to create drum loops like this. But for the last example, I'll take this synth loop here and demonstrate how we can drag any audio file on our hard drive or directly from Splice even into the rips area. And yeah, in my experience, it's best to leave all these boxes checked, even if you think you know exactly what instrument it is, because if you select only one instrument, it might eliminate some atmospheric background noise that might be useful. So in my estimation, it's best to just allow it to extract all the layers together. And I'll click Rip, and it's going to take a moment, less than 1 minute, and then I will be able to drag it into an existing project or open it as its own project. Here's our imported rip. So I believe these are all from one synth loop, but it's detected them as different parts. Now, I want to take these and copy them into my blank slate. But it's a great way to show that you can take extracted audio, selections of extracted audio from other rips and simply paste them into a different rip that you might be working on. So it's incredibly flexible. In addition, it comes with all sorts of specific mapping you can do with your MIDI controller to trigger different sounds or samples on specific keys, as well as receiving MPE sensitivity that can be assigned to various elements. And of course, we can combine our processes to new multi-effect processes here. So then invert pitch, pitch to scale. Then I can apply this to specific note. You can see the incredible flexible power here. Now, it does not allow for loading real-time VST audio effects that might be required to finish a track to really polish it. So in my workflow, I definitely see myself using this quite a bit to arrive at unique sound design ideas. But I'm going to almost certainly, in every case, export them to be used in my DAW. And perhaps, new generation producers will really embrace something like DeepCreate as their full creative workhorse and station where everything occurs. But given the workflows I'm accustomed to, it's a new piece of an exciting puzzle, but it's not the entire puzzle unto itself. For more information, I would go back to the RipX Hit and Mix website, where they've got all kinds of other videos and tutorials, reviews, and blog articles, all worth checking out if you want more information. And they've got a 21-day demo version for download on their website, which should be enough time to get you acquainted with this powerful tool for your creative toolkit. So that's been a look at DeepCreate from Hit and Mix. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you want more great audio production content from Attack Magazine.